The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday night in July. I just dozed off in my recliner, the Canucks game still playing on mute in the background. At 63 years old, I didn't get many late-night calls anymore, and the ones I did get were rarely good news. "Uncle Gerald?" The voice was young, female, trembling. "It's me. It's Bethany." I sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. Bethany, my niece, my brother Richard's stepdaughter. 16 years old, honor roll student. The kid who still sent me hand-drawn birthday cards every year. "Beth? Sweetheart, what's wrong?" "I'm at Vancouver General. Emergency. Uncle Gerald, I need you." Her voice cracked. "Please, I need you to come right now." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Are you hurt? What happened?" Charlene said I got drunk at Megan's pool party and fell down the basement stairs. She was crying now, trying to keep her voice low. "But Uncle Gerald, I didn't drink anything. I swear I didn't. She pushed me. She pushed me because I wouldn't—" A sob cut her off. "Because you wouldn't what, honey?" "Because I wouldn't lie about seeing Dad with that woman from his office." The words tumbled out in a rushed whisper. Charlene found out I knew. She grabbed me at the top of the stairs, and she pushed me. "Uncle Gerald." She pushed me hard, and now Dad's saying I'm lying because I don't like her. And the doctors are asking questions, and I'm so scared. "I'm coming right now." I was already grabbing my keys, shoving my feet into my shoes. "Stay on the phone with me, Beth. I'm 15 minutes away." "Are you alone?" "Dad's here." And Charlene, they're in another room talking to a doctor. Her voice dropped even lower. "Uncle Gerald, everyone thinks Charlene is perfect. She volunteers at the food bank. She's on the school council. Everyone loves her. No one's going to believe me." "I believe you." The words came out firm, certain. I'd been exactly where she was once, decades ago. Different circumstances, but that same terrible feeling of shouting the truth while everyone smiled and called you a liar. "I believe every word, sweetheart. Now tell me exactly where you are." I made it to Vancouver General in 12 minutes, probably breaking several traffic laws along the way. The ER was the usual Friday night chaos, drunks, accidents, the walking wounded of the city sprawled across plastic chairs. I found Bethany in a curtained bay near the back, her right arm in a temporary sling, a nasty bruise blooming purple and yellow along her cheekbone. She looked so small in that hospital bed. When she saw me, her face crumpled. "Uncle Gerald." She reached for me with her good arm, and I took her hand carefully, mindfully of all the monitors and IV lines. "I'm here now. I'm here." I looked her over, trying to keep my anger from showing. Concussion, the board at the foot of her bed read. Fractured collarbone, bruised ribs. "Tell me everything." But before she could speak, the curtain yanked back. My brother Richard stood there, his face tight with frustration. Behind him was Charlene Blonde, pretty, 42 years old, and wearing her concerned stepmother face like a mask. "Gerald." Richard's tone carried a warning. "This isn't the time. Actually, it's exactly the time." I didn't let go of Bethany's hand. "Your daughter called me. She's scared. She's confused." Charlene stepped forward, her voice dripping with sympathy that didn't reach her eyes. "The poor thing had too much to drink at her friend's party. Kids her age, you know how they experiment. She fell down the stairs and now she's trying to deflect by making up stories." I looked at Bethany. Her eyes were pleading. "Believe me. Please believe me." "That's interesting," I said slowly. "Because Beth just told me she didn't drink anything tonight." Of course, she'd say that. Charlene laughed, but it sounded brittle. "Richard, maybe you should take Gerald to the cafeteria. I'll stay with Bethany." "No." Bethany's voice came out stronger than I expected. "I want Uncle Gerald here." "Sweetheart, you're upset." Charlene reached for her, but Bethany flinched back so hard she jostled her injured arm and cried out. Richard saw it. I saw the flicker of doubt cross his face before Charlene's hand touched his shoulder. "She's in pain, Richard. The medication is probably making her confused." Charlene's voice was gentle, reasonable. Dr. Patel said she might be disoriented from the concussion. Before I could respond, a doctor pushed through the curtain, a young woman with kind eyes and tired shoulders, holding a clipboard. Dr. Sarah Patel, according to her badge. "Mr. Morrison?" She looked at Richard. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" "And perhaps." Her gaze shifted to me. "Are you family as well?" "I'm her uncle, Gerald Morrison." "Good. I'd like you both to step into the consultation room. Mrs. Morrison, Perhaps you could wait here with Bethany? Of course. Charlene's smile was perfect, too perfect. I squeezed Bethany's hand. I'll be right back. I promise. The consultation room was a small, beige space with a table and 4 chairs. Doctor. Patel closed the door and set down her clipboard. She looked at Richard, then at me, then back at Richard. Mr. Morrison, I need to be very direct with you. I've reviewed Bethany's injuries, and I've run a blood alcohol test. She paused. Her blood alcohol level is 0. She hasn't consumed any alcohol tonight. Richard blinked. But Charlene said she smelled alcohol on her breath. There's no alcohol in her system. Dr. Patel's voice was firm. And there's something else. The injury pattern doesn't match what your wife described. Bethany has a fractured collarbone, bruised ribs on her left side, and significant bruising on her upper arms. When someone falls downstairs, we typically see injuries on multiple sides of the body, defensive bruising on the hands and forearms, possibly injuries to the head and face from tumbling. Bethany's injuries are more consistent with being pushed from behind and landing on one side. The room went very quiet. What are you saying? Richard's voice was barely a whisper. I'm saying that Bethany's account of what happened, that someone pushed her, is consistent with the medical evidence. A fall downstairs is not. Dr. Patel pulled out a tablet, showing us images I didn't fully understand, but recognized as serious. Additionally, there are older bruises on her upper arms and shoulders, fading, probably from 3 to 4 weeks ago. Finger-shaped bruises, Mr. Morrison, the kind we see when someone grabs another person hard enough to leave marks. I watched my brother's face drain of color. No. He shook his head. No, that's... Bethany's clumsy. She's always bumping into things. Charlene's told me. Mr. Morrison. Dr. Patel's voice was gentle but unyielding. I'm a mandatory reporter. I have a legal and ethical obligation to report suspected child abuse. I've already filed a report with the Ministry of Children and Family Development. A social worker will be contacting you within the next 24 hours. Richard looked like he might be sick. Child abuse? You think, Charlene? You think my wife is abusing my daughter? I think the evidence suggests Bethany has been physically harmed by someone in her household. Dr. Patel stood. I understand this is difficult, but my priority is Bethany's safety. I strongly recommend she not return home with Mrs. Morrison tonight. She's not going home with Charlene. The words came out of my mouth before I'd fully thought them through. She's coming home with me. Richard stared at me. Gerald, look at me, Richard. I leaned forward. Really, look at me and tell me you're 100% certain Charlene didn't hurt your daughter. My brother opened his mouth. Closed it, opened it again. No words came out. That's what I thought. I stood up. Beth called me because she was terrified and she knew I'd believe her. And I do. I believe her completely. But Charlene volunteers at the food bank. She's on the school council. She helps organize the neighborhood watch. Richard's voice was desperate, grasping. Everyone loves her. She's been so good to Bethany. She planned her Sweet 16 party. She helped her study for exams. People who abuse children don't wear signs around their necks. Richard. The words came out harder than I intended, but I was thinking about Bethany lying in that hospital bed, scared and hurting. They're often charming, helpful, respected. That's how they get away with it. Dr. Patel nodded. Mr. Morrison is right. I've been an emergency physician for 12 years. I've seen teachers, coaches, religious leaders, upstanding community members, all of them abusers. The public persona means nothing. The evidence is what matters. Richard's hands were shaking. I need to talk to Charlene. That's your choice. I moved toward the door, but Bethany is coming home with me tonight, and if you try to stop that, I'll call the police myself and tell them everything Beth told me on the phone. I didn't wait for his answer. I walked back to Bethany's bay, where Charlene was standing by the bed, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I entered, and for just a fraction of a second, I saw something cold flicker across her face before the concerned stepmother mask slipped back into place. How is she? Charlene asked, tucking her phone away. She'll be fine. I moved to Bethany's side. The doctor wants to keep her for observation tonight, but she'll be discharged tomorrow. I'll be taking her home with me for a few days. Charlene's smile tightened. I'm sure that's not necessary. Richard and I can take care of her at home where she's comfortable. The doctor recommended she stay with a relative while she recovers. It wasn't quite a lie. Just for a week or so. Let her rest without any stress. I really think Charlene started, but Richard appeared in the doorway. Gerald's right. My brother's voice was hollow. Beth should stay with him for a bit, give her some space to heal. Charlene's head whipped toward him. Richard, that's ridiculous. She needs her mother. You're not her mother. The words came from Bethany, quiet but cutting. You never were. The mask slipped again, just for a second. Charlene's face went hard, her eyes flashing with something ugly. Then she laughed, light and dismissive. The concussion is clearly making you say things you don't mean, sweetheart. Richard, maybe we should talk about this privately. No, Richard wasn't looking at her. He was looking at his daughter, really looking at her, maybe for the first time in months. Beth, is it true? Did Charlene hurt you? Bethany's eyes filled with tears. Dad, I tried to tell you. 3 weeks ago, when you asked about the bruises on my arms, I tried to tell you she grabbed me after I forgot to take out the recycling. But you said I was being dramatic. You said Charlene would never. Oh, for heaven's sake. Charlene's voice turned sharp. I barely touched her. She's exaggerating, like teenagers do. Richard, you know how she gets. She's been trying to break us up since the day we got married. This is just another, get out. Richard's voice was quiet, deadly quiet. Get out of this room right now. Excuse me? I said get out. He pointed to the door. I need to talk to my daughter. Alone, well, with Gerald, but not with you. Charlene stared at him, and I watched the calculation happen behind her eyes. Should she push? Should she play the victim? Should she cry? Instead, she smiled, smoothed her hands down her designer jeans. Fine. I'll be in the waiting room when you're ready to be reasonable. She left. The curtains swished closed behind her. Richard sank into the chair beside Bethany's bed. Baby girl, I need you to tell me the truth. Has Charlene been hurting you? And Bethany, my brave, terrified niece, told him everything. It had started 6 months after Richard married Charlene, about 2 years ago. Little things at first, cruel comments about Bethany's weight, her clothes, her friends. Charlene would smile and call them helpful suggestions if Richard was around, but alone with Bethany, the mask came off. Then came the grabbing, the arm twists, the shoves, nothing that left obvious marks, nothing that couldn't be explained away as accidents or teenage clumsiness. Bethany had tried to tell Richard several times, but Charlene was smart. She'd built up a reputation as the perfect stepmother, the woman who'd stepped up to help raise another woman's child. She volunteered at Bethany's school. She attended every parent-teacher conference. She posted photos of their blended family on social media with captions about love and second chances. When Bethany tried to speak up, Richard dismissed it as adjustment issues, normal teenage rebellion against a step-parent. He told Bethany she needed to try harder, be more understanding, give Charlene a chance. So Bethany stopped telling him. But tonight, Bethany's voice shook. I made a mistake. I came home early from the pool party because I forgot my phone, and I walked into the kitchen, and Dad was there with Miss Chen from his office. They were close, too close, and I saw them. Richard's face went white. Beth, I didn't say anything. I just grabbed my phone and left. But Charlene came home right after me. She asked why I was back early, and I told her. I thought, Bethany wiped at her tears with her good hand. I thought she'd want to know. I thought she'd be upset with Dad, not me. What did she do? I asked gently. She smiled. She said thank you for telling her. Then she asked me not to mention it to Dad yet, that she wanted to talk to him privately. I said okay. Bethany's voice dropped to a whisper. But then later, after Dad got home, I heard them talking. Charlene told him I was spreading lies because I was jealous of their marriage. She said I'd been making up stories about her for months, and tonight I'd gone too far. She said I was trying to destroy their family, and I believed her. Richard's voice broke. God help me. I believed her instead of you. Dad came up to my room. He was so angry. He said I needed to stop lying and apologize to Charlene. I tried to explain, but he wouldn't listen. He left, and then Charlene came upstairs. Bethany was crying hard now. She said I'd made a big mistake. She said if I didn't tell Dad I made up the story about Miss Chen, she'd make sure everyone knew what a troubled, lying teenager I was. She said she'd send me to boarding school, or to live with Mom's relatives in Ontario, somewhere far away from everyone I loved. I told her no. I told her I wasn't going to lie. And she got this look on her face, Uncle Gerald, like she wasn't even human anymore. She grabbed my arm and dragged me into the hallway, to the top of the stairs. I thought she was going to make me go downstairs and apologize right then. But instead, she put both hands on my chest, and she pushed. The curtain area fell silent, except for Bethany's sobbing and Richard's ragged breathing. "I'm so sorry, baby girl." Richard's voice was thick with tears. "I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. I'm so sorry I let this happen." I put a hand on my brother's shoulder. "What matters now is what you do next." Richard looked up at me, his eyes red. "I'm going to the RCMP. Right now. Tonight. I'm going to tell them everything." "Good." I squeezed his shoulder. "And Beth is staying with me until this is sorted. No arguments." "No arguments," Richard agreed. He looked at his daughter. "I love you, Bethany. I'm going to fix this. I promise." But it wasn't that simple. Nothing ever is. The RCMP took Richard's statement that night, but Charlene had already lawyered up by morning. She claimed Bethany was a troubled teen with behavioral issues, that she'd been caught drinking before, a lie, that she'd been seeing a therapist for lying and attention-seeking behavior, another lie. She produced character witnesses, neighbors, fellow volunteers, parents from the school council, all of whom spoke glowingly about her dedication to Bethany's well-being. The investigation dragged on. Charlene moved out of the house but maintained her innocence. She hired a publicist who spun the story as a tragic case of a stepmother falsely accused by a resentful teenager. The local parent groups on social media split into camps, some supporting Bethany, others defending Charlene. It was Dr. Patel's detailed medical report that finally tipped the scales. She documented everything meticulously, the injury patterns, the old bruises, the inconsistencies in Charlene's story. She testified that, in her professional opinion, Bethany had been physically abused over an extended period. Then Richard's lawyer tracked down Charlene's ex-husband from her first marriage in Ontario. He had a daughter too, Madison. 22 years old now, living in Toronto, working as a graphic designer. Madison had a story remarkably similar to Bethany's. I was there when Madison gave her deposition via video call. She was a lovely young woman with sad eyes, and as she spoke about her teenage years with Charlene, I watched Bethany grip my hand tighter and tighter. "I tried to tell my dad," Madison said, "so many times, but Charlene was perfect in public. Everyone loved her, and I was just an angry teenager who didn't want to accept my new stepmother. At least, that's what everyone told me." She paused. "The worst part wasn't even the physical stuff. It was knowing that no one would believe me, that she'd won before I even opened my mouth." "Why didn't you report it after you turned 18? The lawyer asked. Madison's laugh was bitter. "Because I'd spent 4 years being called a liar. Because Charlene convinced everyone I had behavioral problems. Because I just wanted to get away and start over somewhere. She couldn't touch me." She looked directly at the camera. "But when I heard she'd married again, that she had another stepdaughter, I hoped maybe this time would be different. I hoped maybe she'd changed. And then I saw the news about Bethany." Her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry I didn't come forward sooner. I should have warned someone." "It's not your fault," Bethany said softly. "None of this is your fault." With Madison's testimony, the case against Charlene solidified. The Crown proceeded with charges of assault, causing bodily harm, and child abuse. The trial was scheduled for the following spring. Bethany stayed with me through it all. We turned my spare bedroom into her space, painted the walls her favorite shade of blue, hung up her art projects, set up her computer for online schooling. She didn't want to go back to her old school, not with all the whispers and stares. So we enrolled her in an online program. She could finish her junior year from the safety of my apartment. Richard visited every day. At first, Bethany could barely look at him, but slowly, painfully, they began to rebuild. He started seeing a therapist to work through his guilt. He cut ties completely with Miss Chen. It turned out there had been an affair, brief and stupid, and he owned it. He did the work. He showed up. He listened. "I don't know if I can forgive him," Bethany told me one night, about 4 months after the hospital incident. We were sitting on my balcony, looking out over the Vancouver skyline. The lights of the city spread below us like stars. "Not fully, not yet. That's okay," I said. "Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone, especially not on someone else's timeline. What matters is that you feel safe. I do feel safe. With you. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Uncle Gerald, can I ask you something? Anything, sweetheart. How did you know to believe me? Right away, on the phone, without any proof, you just believed me. I was quiet for a moment, choosing my words carefully. When I was about your age, a bit younger maybe, something happened to me. Someone hurt me, and when I tried to tell the adults in my life, they didn't believe me either. The person who hurt me was popular, well-liked, respected, and I was just a kid. Who were they going to believe? Bethany lifted her head to look at me. What happened? Eventually, they believed other kids who came forward. It took years. By then, I'd learned not to trust that adults would protect me. I met her eyes. So when you called me and said you needed help, I remembered what it felt like to not be believed. And I promised myself right then that I would never, ever be the person who failed a child that way. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for believing me. The trial happened in April. Charlene pleaded not guilty, maintained her innocence throughout. But the evidence was overwhelming, Doctor. Patel's medical report, Madison's testimony, Richard's account of Charlene's manipulation, even testimony from Megan, the girl whose pool party Bethany had attended. Megan confirmed Bethany hadn't been drinking that night, that Bethany had left early, saying she forgot something. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found Charlene guilty on both counts. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison, less than I'd hoped for, but Richard's lawyer explained that without more severe injuries, or a longer pattern of documented abuse, the judge's hands were somewhat tied. Charlene would also be required to complete anger management and parenting courses, and would have a permanent criminal record. As they led her out of the courtroom, Charlene looked back once. Not at Richard, not at the lawyers or the judge or the jury, at Bethany, and she smiled. It was the same cold smile Bethany had described, the one that said, "I'm not sorry. I'd do it again. You got lucky this time." Bethany grabbed my hand, and I held it tight. "She can't hurt you anymore," I said quietly. "She has no power over you anymore." "I know." Bethany's voice was steady. "But Uncle Gerald, there are other kids out there, kids with step-parents or parents or whoever, and no one believes them either. What happens to them?" It was a question I didn't have a good answer for. After the trial, Bethany decided she wanted to speak publicly about her experience. Richard was hesitant, worried about the attention, but I supported her. She recorded a video for her school's mental health awareness campaign, talking about recognizing the signs of abuse and the importance of believing children. "If a kid tells you something's wrong, believe them," she said into the camera, her voice clear and strong, even if it seems impossible. Even if the person they're accusing is someone everyone loves. Abusers are good at hiding. They're good at making victims look like liars. But somewhere deep down, you feel it. Trust that feeling. Speak up. And if you're the kid trying to be heard, keep telling your story. Keep speaking up until someone listens. Because somewhere out there is a person like my Uncle Gerald. Someone who will believe you and fight for you. Don't give up looking for them. The video went viral within her school, then spread to other schools across British Columbia. Bethany started getting messages from other teens who'd experienced similar situations. Some had escaped, some were still trapped. All of them needed to know they weren't alone. Now, 2 years later, Bethany is 18. She graduated from high school with honors and just started at UBC, studying social work. She wants to be a child protective services worker, someone who fights for kids who can't fight for themselves. Richard and Bethany have rebuilt their relationship, though it's different now. More honest, more careful. Richard knows he failed her, and he's spent every day since trying to make it right. He's a better father now, more attentive, more willing to listen, less quick to dismiss. He'll carry the guilt of what happened for the rest of his life, but he's channeled it into action. He volunteers with organizations that support abuse survivors. He speaks at parenting workshops about recognizing manipulation and believing your children. As for me, Bethany still stays with me most weekends. We cook dinner together, watch terrible movies, talk about her classes and her future. She calls me her safe person, and I consider it the greatest honor of my life. Last week, she brought home a friend from one of her classes, a quiet girl named Amy, who seemed nervous, who flinched when I moved too quickly to reach for the remote. Bethany caught my eye across the room and gave me a small nod. Later, After Amy left, Bethany said, "I think she needs help, Uncle Gerald. I think something's happening at home." "What makes you think that?" I asked, though I'd noticed the same things she had. The way she talks about her stepdad, how she's always making excuses for bruises, how she never wants to go home. Bethany's jaw set with determination. "I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to let her know she can tell me the truth, and I'll believe her." I pulled her into a hug. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You taught me that," she said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "You taught me that one person believing you can change everything. And that, I suppose, is the lesson in all of this. The lesson I learned the hard way, and Bethany learned too young. Abuse thrives in silence and disbelief. It hides behind charming smiles and community service, and the assumption that certain people couldn't possibly do such terrible things. But children don't lie about abuse more than adults lie about anything else. Study after study proves it false. Allegations from children are rare, far more rare than the abuse that goes unreported because no one will listen. So if a child comes to you, frightened and hurting, and tells you someone is harming them, believe them, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it disrupts your life or your perception of someone you trust. Even if it seems impossible, believe them first. Ask questions later. Protect them immediately. Because somewhere out there is a teenager at a hospital, scared and alone, hoping someone will pick up the phone at midnight and say, "I believe you. I'm coming right now." Be that person. Always be that person. The monsters that hurt children count on adult disbelief. They count on reputation and charm and social standing to shield them. Don't let it work. Don't be the reason another child suffers in silence. Bethany survived because one person believed her. How many children are still waiting for their one person? How many are calling out right now, hoping someone will hear? Answer the phone. Believe them. Fight for them. It might be the most important thing you ever do.